So this is where our trip begins, in Singapore. This is the iconic merlion, or as I like to call it, the lionfish. I believe that is its technical name. We stayed here. Well, it was actually around the corner, but we practically lived in this place. You know you would too. But that wasn't what we were really there for. It was actually this. Actually this. But free soup is good too. Along the way, we caught up with some of the local sites. This picture was taken from the top of the Summit Path in some national park in Singapore. I didn't bother to remember the name because it is irrelevant to our tax research. Quite a view though, no? This sign was found 10 feet away. I think the true summit is behind that fence, but if you go in there, they will stick a rifle right in your face. Not 3 feet away from it, right in it. In search of a better view, we took a ride on the DHL balloon. I've wanted to ride on a hot air balloon ever since I saw an episode of Smallville where Clark takes his adopted kid brother up in one. Unfortunately, this experience will not allow me to check that off my list of things to do before I die because this was a tethered balloon filled with inert gases. Despite the lack of ballooning thrills, we still saw some pretty sights. Ooh, pretty. After that, we decided it was time to sample another one of the local favorites, according to the pamphlet I picked up at the airport. This time, it was curry fish head. The eyeball on this was way bigger than seemed possible because it was twice the size of the hole in the fish's head. In any case, I ate this probably human eyeball with only a single cringe when I bit into its lens and my teeth stuck there. Well, that was enough for this trip to Singapore. It was on to Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur. One of our first stops there was the Batu Caves, a place where they have monkeys for beggars instead of homeless people. A place where they have monkeys for beggars instead of homeless people. They even have old dried up prostitute monkeys. After a climb up this long staircase, you get to the caves. Notice they number the stairs. Very helpful in case you've lost count yourself. As you can see, the caves are beautiful, but also fragile. Each guest must take his or her turn holding up these ancient stalactites, or else the whole thing will come crashing down. That night, I was introduced to my first durian, but it wouldn't be the last. Well, I haven't eaten another one since then, so technically it's still the last. But you can bet your last buffalo nickel that I will eat another one day. Our hotel featured this amazing band. Although the poster calls them Music Zone, I know they preferred to be called the Three Sisters. When I first saw this poster, I proclaimed their names to be Kinda Fat, Thunder Thighs, and Butterface. Of course, after they introduced themselves to me, I could no longer think of them in that way. Their new names were Old Enough to Be My Mom, Flosses With Her Hair, and Turkey Chin Butterface. I love those girls. Look, I even got a picture with Flosses With Her Hair. We moved on from KL to Tanah Rata, where we stayed at a place called Daniel's Lodge, a good jumping off place to hit the trails around the Cameron Highlands. Here is a beautiful waterfall. It was a little confusing where the color came from until we saw what was on the other side of it. We followed up our day of hiking with a day of golf. Some people do not take an entire day to play golf, but if you're like us, shooting scores of 150 and 180, then it takes a bit longer. I lost a lot of balls in the sun, and the water, and the woods. Tanah Rata did have some other gems, such as this deliciously cheap roti for 1 ringgit. It also features the boa tea plantations. They stretch on and on. Unfortunately, our time there did not, and so we had to move on to the resort town of Langkawi. Libin and I realized that this would be a pivotal point in our research. Langkawi does not charge taxes, so we would need to use this as a baseline. In addition, This would be one of our longest stopovers, so we would need to take advantage of this time to seriously dig into our work. Of course, there were distractions, such as this lizard in a garbage can, and the beautiful views on the beach. But unlike these young chaps, whose game of beach soccer was a constant reminder of the fun we were missing out on, we persevered. Of course, there were other perks for us being this close to the sea. The best meal of the trip was this white pomfret in garlic sauce. I topped it off with a bowl of rice porridge and lychee juice. It ran a little expensive though, so on my next meal, I had to scrimp a little. Don't worry, there was a lot more of that oyster sauce left on the plate before I got to it. Looking back, if Langkawi means anything to me, it's research. Yes, that's the only thing that comes to mind. Our next step off was Kota Kinabalu. There was another live band there, which lured me in by singing Muse's Starlight. Wibben and I enjoyed some refreshing drinks while we listened to them. Look at those smiling faces. This was one night before we would begin our harrowing trip up Mount Kinabalu, a climb that would change us forever. We would never again be human, at least not in the way that we once were. If you ever do the climb yourself, one of the first things you'll see is this waterfall. Take my advice and dive into its cool waters. Splash around a bit. It'll give you a fond memory to hold on to once the climb begins. As you're moving along the first kilometer, it is deceptively easy. The problem is, these steps get steeper, and they last forever. It's 6 kilometers to the hostel, and it isn't long before the steps degrade into conditions more like this, except this is one of the few flat areas of the trail. Now I'll admit, perhaps the reason the climb was so brutal was the fact that we did in 4 hours what's supposed to take 6. But at the end of the day, we were rewarded with a nice looking sunset, followed by our immediate bedtime, as we had to get up at 3 a.m. to start the climb to the summit.